Instead of speaking generally of the state of Russia's agriculture and giving forecasts, I will give numbers, figures, and the interviews by real farmers, where they describe what's really going on the ground in Russian agriculture. And yes, in 2025, things in the agriculture industry are very bad. Very bad. 2024 was an extremely difficult year for Russian economy, and one of the industries hit the hardest was agriculture. Crop yield declined compared to the prior year, the number of cattle also decreased by a great deal, and other problems encountered included high costs of bank loans, incredible shortage of working hands, farmers were mobilized to the war, increasing prices of materials and fertilizers, high costs of foreign-made machines and spare parts, and no access to Western seed technologies. That was 2024. In 2025, these problems not only haven't disappeared, they're multiplying. Russian agriculture, especially livestock and dairy industries, are facing the darkest year ever. For the first time in modern history, Russian farmers are forced to slaughter their cattle. In the following months and years, it'll lead to a complete food disaster in the country. Now, agriculture can be divided into crop growing and livestock growing. Right now, I'd like to zero in on livestock growing. I'll speak of crop growing in one of the next videos. So, livestock growing or livestock production. It is an extremely important part of agriculture for two reasons: food production and jobs. Livestock production has always been a difficult business due to work intensity and low profitability. First few years of my life I spent at my grandparents' farm. Well, a tiny, illegal farm, because in the USSR you had to work for the state, and growing animals or growing crops for personal use was a risky business. So my grandpa had 2 cows, 3 or 4 pigs, and some chickens. I remember the cows had names. That's pretty much how we survived off his little farm. And I remember the work schedule. The adults woke up at around 5 a.m., went to bed around 11 p.m., and worked in between. Commercial livestock production is fairly similar, lots of hard work, and historically, commercial farms in Russia faced conditions of constant uncertainty, fluctuating feed prices, and high overhead costs. Profitability was always low, from 5 to 10%. That was the industry average. So even before the war, livestock production was ridden with challenges. And the biggest trend of previous 15 years was small and medium-sized farms were acquired by large corporations or driven out of business by large agricultural corporations, and were bought on pennies for dollar by the same large agricultural corporations. And then Russian-Ukrainian war started in 2022, and livestock production started suffering more. The Western companies, the holders of agriculture technologies, left. Well, at least majority of them left. That included specialized equipment, machinery, processes, and animal drugs. That has made livestock production less technologically advanced, more labor intensive, and therefore less profitable, less efficient. Don't get me wrong. Some core technologies, equipment, etc. can still be bought in Russia, but it takes sophisticated logistics to get them into Russia, where in the past everything was sold directly by producers or manufacturers. This increases costs of livestock production, making it even less profitable. On top of that, Russian male farmers have been the part of the Russian society that was hit the hardest, has been hit hardest by the ongoing mobilization. No, the mobilization people, servicemen, officers, whatever, they came not to Moscow, not to St. Petersburg, not to large cities. They came to villages looking for people. And the farmers, they're most hardworking people, but at the same time, not too many of them know of their rights. Therefore, a huge number of farmers have been mobilized. On top of that, Russian farms are incurring incredibly high cost of money. Commercial bank loans start at 30% interest rate these days. Imagine you are an owner of a Russian farm in 2025. You're facing all these challenges, problems. You have tough choices to make. What would you do? What would be your choices if you're a farmer? Please share with us in the comments below. I want to see what you think, what you would do. It's very interesting. Now, I tell you what the Russian farmers are doing. They're slaughtering their livestock and selling meat off. Even if you look at the official reports coming from Russian propaganda, you'd see that things are not all right. For example, this article by Interfax, one of the largest propaganda media outlet, government agency, this article from late January with the official numbers for agriculture. Take a look. The title says Росстат reported a 2.1 increase in livestock and poultry production in 2024. That's a sugarcoating. That's sugar-coated title. Check this out. The number of cattle in farms of all categories, meaning sizes, decreased by 4.1% to 16.4 million heads, including cows by 3.8%. The number of pigs decreased by 1.6%, sheep and goats by 5.2%. Poultry increased by 2.2%, okay? That's all the farms in Russia, big and small, large corporations, individual businessmen, farmers. But then they give more sinister numbers. These ones. These are small farmers and small farms. The number of cattle in this sector decreased by 4.3% to 2.8 million heads, including cows by 4.7% to 1.4 million heads. The number of pigs decreased by 10.3% to 0.2 million heads. Sheep and goats by 3.2% to 7.9 million heads, and poultry increased by 2.4% to 9.3 million heads. And they are bad numbers, and they are official numbers. I don't trust anything official coming out of Russian government, and I assume that these official numbers need to be multiplied at least by 2. Okay, so far it's been general talk, but I want to give you real information from the ground, real farmers speak. Believe it or not, but you can still find this kind of information in Russia, if you know where to look. You certainly won't find it in the federal media. They are controlled by the state. But if you look at small independent media outlets from different provinces that operate within provinces and cater to the residents of those provinces, you still can get a feeling what is really going on. Let's check out another article. This article is called "The Mood is Terrible. Everyone is sad, everyone is disappointed. Don farmers explain why they're sending cows to slaughterhouse en masse." This article was printed in the media called 161.ru. It's a website. It's a news media of Rostov province. I know it quite well, because I used to live in Rostov and I used to read it all the time. This true information at places like this one, I call this information golden nuggets. Anyway, this is what the article says. And by the way, this article was printed in March, late March of 2025, not too long ago. So, the price for dairy products are growing incomparably faster than for meat products, according to Rostovstat data. Rostovstat is the regional office of Department of Росстат, Russia's statistics agency. The average price for a kilo of butter in Rostov province has reached 1,072 rubles, according to the agency's report. A year ago, residents of Rostov paid 778 rubles for a kilo of butter, 294 rubles cheaper. Beef has only increased in price by 51 rubles year to year. And farmers admit that this is happening because there's less milk on the market and more beef. According to livestock breeders, selling milk is labor-intensive and unprofitable. The cost of electricity, feed, and workers' wages does not compensate for the cost of 1 liter of milk, at which the plants accept raw milk. And there's only more beef on the market because farmers stop raising livestock and take their cows to slaughterhouse. Therefore, there's less milk in the province and more meat, says Alexei Zhdanov, a farmer from Proletarsky district, the chairman of the board of Don Association of Peasant farms and agricultural cooperatives. The mood is terrible. Everyone is despondent. Everyone is disappointed. No one has any money. How can we live on? In Rostov province, 400 farmers have gone bankrupt in just 1 year, says Zhdanov. And Alexander Rodin, the president of the Don Association of Peasant Farms and Agricultural Cooperatives, that's another executive of this organization, confirms these words. He believes that this will lead to a reduction in the amount of raw material, raw milk, on the market, and therefore even higher prices in the future. Rodin says that the reason for this is the distribution of state support funds. Large agricultural holdings corporations receive more state support than farms. Many farmers who combine crop production and livestock farming in their businesses use cattle as live capital. They have loans that farmers took out for crop production, which has become unprofitable also. Farmers are working at a loss. They're cutting out livestock farming and paying off their loans. The picture is depressing. Now, let's take a look at the next article from the same media from mid-April. The situation is worsening. They're taking the same data for some of the article, but the situation is getting worse. The article's name is Slaughterhouses Slaughter Cows Day and Night. Farmers on why dairy products have become 37% more expensive in Don region. Dairy farming is unprofitable. A roll of hay has increased in price from 800 to 3,000 rubles in 1 year, farmers say. In Rostov province, dairy product prices have increased over the last year. For example, butter on the shelves has increased in price by 37%. Now a kilo costs an average of 1,086 rubles. Now, friends, if you compare it with the previous article that came out in March, with this one that came out with April, you will see that the price of butter increased just between these two articles. Okay, this is what's going on in Russia. In winter, the purchase price for milk was 38 rubles, and we were happy about that, says Arsen Janaraliyev, a farmer from Kasharsky district. Milk in villages is bought by resellers who sell it to creameries, the farmer noted. After processing, it goes to stores. At each stage in this chain, the price of milk increases and consumer pays almost twice as much. The drought that hit Rostov province last year affected the cost of livestock farming, which is why many people send their cows to the slaughterhouses, the farmer added. Pasture taxes have gone up, as have feed prices. Last year was really scary because of the drought. The year before last, a roll of meadow hay cost 8 to 900 rubles. Last year it cost 3,000 rubles. This is unseeded meadow, which simply grows in fields. Due to rising feed prices and other costs, generally halved the number of cows in 2024. I finished the production several years ago. The livestock has been gone for a long time, that's all. There was no land of our own, everything was rented, and the rent has risen a lot, and it is very expensive for pasture animals. It's not profitable, said Alexei Kokotun from Bagaevsky district, not too far from Rostov. Farmers are slaughtering their cows en masse. Livestock farming is currently unprofitable, admitted Alexander Rodin, who we already quoted in the previous article. And to finish it with the articles, that's another article from Rostov on Don about the current state of agriculture and the situation with the farmers. It's called People Don't Have Money. This isn't Moscow. Don farmer appeals to Mishustin, Russia's prime minister, over closure of Svetofor chain of stores. The disappearance of cheap supermarkets threatens to ruin small suppliers, small farmers. And this is a fresh article from April 11. Svetofor, just to let you know, is Russian food low coster. Several companies and entrepreneurs wrote an appeal to Prime Minister Mikhail Mishustin asking him to protect Svetofor supermarket chain. They point out that if the chain stores close, they will have nowhere to sell their products. Among the authors of the appeal is Vladimir Rubashkin, a farmer from Rostov province. In an interview with 161.ru, he spoke about the difficulties small producers face when trying to sell their goods through large chains. They are depriving us of work as suppliers. We are already working on pennies. The summary: Russian farmers have been slaughtering the cattle because livestock production in Russia is now unprofitable. This is caused by a number of reasons, generally by the collapse of Russian economy. We are seeing the decline in livestock production, and the forecast is negative. And you can't fix that with a snap of a finger, just like that, even if you stop the war, even if you start applying right policies. No, it doesn't work like that. Restoring agriculture is a long and costly process. So, will there be any food shortages in Russia in foreseeable future? No, I don't think so. But food will definitely become more expensive, and people will be eating less. Paying significantly more for food and eating less, that's the price you pay for invading your neighbor and killing innocent people. Carthago delenda est.